Have you ever sat at the kitchen table in the early morning with a cup of coffee getting cold in front of you and looked at your phone wondering if it would ring today? Not because you needed anything, not because there was some emergency, but because deep down you just wanted to know that someone was thinking about you. Maybe you have spent many years being the person everyone called when they needed something. A ride, a favor, a check, a warm meal, a place to stay, a listening ear, help with the grandchildren, help with a bill, help with a problem they did not know how to carry alone. And maybe for a long time you told yourself that being needed meant being loved. It felt close enough. It sounded almost the same. When the phone rang, you felt useful. When someone asked for your help, you felt remembered. When your children or relatives came by because they needed something, you opened the door with a smile, even if your heart quietly wondered, would they still come if I had nothing to give? That is a tender question. And if you have ever asked it in the privacy of your own heart, I want you to know something right from the start. You are not wrong for feeling that way. You are not selfish. You are not ungrateful. You are simply a human being who has given a lot, lived a long time, and finally learned that usefulness is not the same as love. At 72, many people begin to understand things they could not see at 40 or 50. Not because they were foolish back then, but because life has a way of teaching its quietest lessons slowly. It teaches through empty chairs, through calls that only come when someone needs help, through holidays that feel different than they used to, through doctor appointments you attend alone, through a house that once echoed with voices and now mostly holds the sound of the clock, the refrigerator, and your own footsteps in the hallway. And somewhere along the way, you may begin to realize this gentle but painful truth. Being needed can make you feel important for a moment, but being loved makes you feel safe, even when you have nothing to offer. There is a difference, a very important difference. And that is what we are going to sit with today. Not with bitterness, not with blame, not with anger toward family or children or anyone who has disappointed you. We are simply going to look at it honestly, the way you might look at an old photograph in your hands, and finally notice details you missed for years. Because after 60, after 70, after so many seasons of giving, raising, working, helping, forgiving, and holding things together, you deserve more than just being useful. You deserve tenderness. You deserve presence. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not only for what you can still do. Maybe for much of your life, being needed gave you purpose. And there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, it can be a beautiful thing. When your children were young, they needed you every day. They needed breakfast before school. They needed clean clothes. They needed help tying their shoes, rides to practice, lunches packed, permission slips signed, and someone to sit beside the bed when they had a fever. Back then, being needed was part of love. It was natural. It was life. You may remember those busy mornings when you barely had time to drink your coffee while it was still hot. Someone was always calling your name. Someone could not find their shoes. Someone forgot their homework. Someone needed lunch money. Someone needed comfort after a bad dream or a hard day. And yes, it was tiring, but it was also full. The house had movement in it. The kitchen had crumbs on the counter. The laundry never seemed to end. The car always needed gas because somebody had to be driven somewhere. You may have wished for 5 minutes of peace back then, not knowing that one day the quiet would come and stay longer than expected. It is strange, isn't it? When people need us constantly, we can feel worn out. But when no one seems to need us at all, we can feel invisible. Have you ever looked back at those busy years and missed even the tired parts? Maybe you remember Sunday mornings trying to get everybody ready for church. Maybe you remember Thanksgiving when the kitchen smelled like turkey, stuffing, sweet potatoes, and pies cooling on the counter. Maybe you remember children running through the house while the adults talked too loudly in the living room. Maybe you remember someone spilling gravy, someone laughing too hard, someone falling asleep in front of the football game. Back then, you may not have called it happiness. You may have just called it life, and life at the time felt ordinary. Only later do we realize that some of the most ordinary days were the ones holding the most love. But as the years pass, things change. Children grow up, they move away, they build lives of their own. Grandchildren grow taller, they become busy too. Families spread across states. The old dining table is not as crowded. The holidays become smaller. The phone calls become shorter. Sometimes they begin with, "Hey, I was wondering if you could," and because your heart is still your heart, you say yes. You say yes because you love them. You say yes because you remember when they were small. You say yes because helping gives you a reason to feel close. But slowly, if you are honest with yourself, you may notice that some people know how to ask from you, but they do not always know how to sit with you. They know how to call when the car breaks down. They know how to call when they need someone to watch the kids. They know how to call when they are short on money. They know how to call when life gets heavy. But they do not always call just to ask, "How are you feeling today?" They do not always ask about your doctor appointment. They do not always remember that you too may be tired. They do not always understand that older hearts can still ache even when older hands keep giving. And maybe this is something you have felt too. Maybe you have been the dependable one for so long that everyone forgot you also need care. That can happen quietly. People get used to your strength. They get used to your kindness. They get used to your yes. They get used to the way you answer the phone, open the door, make room at the table and say, "Don't worry, I'll help." They may not mean to take you for granted. Most families are not full of villains. They are full of busy, tired, distracted people who sometimes forget to look closely at the ones who have always been there. But even when there is no bad intention, the hurt can still be real. A person can love you and still forget to show it. A person can need you and still fail to cherish you. A person can depend on you and still not truly see you. That is why learning the difference matters so much. Because if you confuse being needed with being loved, you may keep giving past the point of peace. You may keep saying yes when your body is asking you to rest. You may keep lending what you cannot afford to lose. You may keep answering every call, hoping this time the call will include concern for you too. And after a while, your heart gets tired. Not angry maybe, just tired. Tired in a way that is hard to explain. You still love your family. You still want good things for them. You still pray for them, worry about them, and smile when they send a picture of the grandchildren. But there is a quiet part of you that wonders, if I stop doing so much, would they still come around? That question can hurt, but it can also become the beginning of wisdom. Because sometimes peace begins when you stop measuring your worth by how much others depend on you. Your value is not in how useful you are. Your value is not in how often your phone rings. Your value is not in whether the children need you, the grandchildren need you, the neighbors need you, or the church committee needs you. Your value was there before you helped anyone today. Your value is there when you are sitting quietly in your favorite chair. Your value is there when you are resting. Your value is there when you are not solving anybody's problem. You still matter, even when no one is asking you for anything. That may sound simple, but for many people over 60, it is one of the hardest lessons to receive. Because you may have been raised in a time when love was shown through work. You did not always talk about feelings. You showed love by cooking, fixing, driving, cleaning, paying, showing up, and doing what had to be done. You may have had parents who never said, "I love you" very often, but they worked hard, kept food on the table, and made sure the house was warm in winter. You learned early that love meant sacrifice. Love meant responsibility. Love meant putting everyone else first. And for many years, that way of loving carried your family. There is honor in that. There is beauty in that. But here is the part we often forget. If love only goes one direction for too long, even the strongest heart begins to feel lonely. Love is not meant to be a one-way road forever. Yes, parents give more when children are young. Yes, grandparents often give with open hands. Yes, there is joy in helping those we love. But as you grow older, love also needs to become gentler toward you. It should not only ask, "Can you do this for me?" It should sometimes ask, "Are you okay?" It should not only say, "I need you." It should sometimes say, "I appreciate you." It should not only come to your house when there is a favor to ask. It should sometimes sit on your porch just to watch the evening light with you. That kind of love may not be loud. It may be a 5-minute phone call for no reason. It may be someone remembering your appointment and calling afterward. It may be a grandchild asking about an old photo. It may be your daughter saying, "I know you always say you're fine, but how are you really?" It may be your son stopping by without needing money, without needing help, without needing anything except to spend an hour with you. Those moments are small, but they feed the heart. Tell me, have you ever had a small visit or a simple phone call that stayed with you for days. Sometimes the little things mean more as we get older because we understand what they cost. A little time, a little attention, a little remembering. Those things may seem small to the busy world, but to a quiet heart, they can feel like sunshine through the window. At 72, you may begin to sort through your life in a new way. You may look around your home and see pieces of your story everywhere. A family photo on the wall, a worn Bible on the nightstand, a recipe card in your mother's handwriting, a coffee mug from a trip you took years ago, a blanket folded over the back of the couch, a birthday card you saved because the message inside made you feel loved. These things remind you that your life has not been empty. It has been full of giving, trying, enduring, forgiving, and beginning again. But they may also remind you of the difference between being surrounded by memories and being surrounded by presence. Memories are precious, but we still need presence. Even the strongest person needs someone to notice them. Not every day, not every hour, but sometimes. Enough to remind the heart you are not forgotten. And if that presence has been missing in your life, it is okay to admit that it hurts. You do not have to pretend that loneliness is easy. You do not have to laugh it off. You do not have to say, "Oh, I'm fine," when the truth is that some evenings feel very long. There are nights when the house becomes too quiet. The television is on, but you are not really watching it. The lamp is glowing in the corner. The dishes are washed. The medicine is set out for the morning. Outside, maybe a few cars pass by. Somewhere down the street, a dog barks. And you sit there thinking about how life changed so gradually that you almost did not notice it happen. The children who once needed you for everything now have full calendars and busy lives. The friends you used to see often may have moved away, passed on, or become homebound themselves. Your body may not move as easily as it once did. Even simple errands can take planning now. A doctor appointment can fill half a day. And in those quiet moments, you may wonder, who am I now if I am not the one everyone needs? That question is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that your soul is trying to grow into a new season. For so many years, your identity may have been wrapped around being useful. Mother, father, provider, caregiver, worker, spouse, grandparent, helper, fixer, the one who could always be counted on. But after 60, life may invite you into a deeper identity. Not what you do, not what you give, not what people need from you, but who you are when the room is quiet, who you are when no one is watching, who you are when you are simply breathing, remembering, praying, and still becoming. There is one quiet truth many people discover after 60. You are allowed to exist without earning your place. You are allowed to be loved without performing. You are allowed to rest without guilt. You are allowed to say, "I cannot do that today," and still be a good person. You are allowed to help less and live more peacefully. That can be hard to practice, especially if saying no feels uncomfortable. Maybe someone calls and asks for a favor, and your first instinct is to say yes before you even check your own strength. Maybe your knee has been bothering you. Maybe you did not sleep well. Maybe your fixed income is already stretched thin. Maybe you have your own appointment, your own worries, your own quiet needs. But the old habit speaks quickly. "Sure, I can help." Then, after the call ends, you sit there with a heavy feeling in your chest. You know you gave more than you had to give. You know you said yes because you were afraid a no might make someone pull away. That is where the lesson begins. Love that disappears the moment you set a boundary was never the kind of love your heart deserved. Real love may be disappointed sometimes. It may need to adjust. It may not always understand right away. But real love does not only stay when you are useful. Real love respects your age. Real love respects your energy. Real love respects your limits. Real love does not make you feel guilty for being human. And maybe that is something you need to hear today. You can love people deeply and still have boundaries. You can be generous and still protect your peace. You can be kind and still say, "I'm sorry I can't this time." You can be a good parent, grandparent, friend, or neighbor without giving until you feel empty. What is one boundary you have learned to set later in life, even if it was hard at first? Sometimes setting a boundary is not about shutting people out. It is about teaching them how to love you better. It is saying gently, "I am still here, but I am not endless. That is not bitterness. That is wisdom. And wisdom is one of the gifts of age. When you are younger, you may think love means holding on tightly. You may think you have to prove yourself. You may try to keep everyone happy. You may worry that if you disappoint someone, you will lose them. But later in life, after enough birthdays, enough losses, enough long nights, and enough prayers whispered in the dark, you start to understand something deeper. Peace is not found in being needed by everyone. Peace is found in knowing you are loved by God, by the people who truly see you, and by your own heart that has finally learned to be gentle with itself. For some viewers, faith has been an anchor through many seasons. Maybe Sunday mornings still matter to you. Maybe church hymns remind you of your parents or your childhood. Maybe you have sat in a pew with tears in your eyes, not because anything terrible happened that morning, but because the song touched a place in you that had been tired for a long time. Faith does not remove every loneliness, but it can hold you inside it. It can remind you that even when people forget to call, your life is still seen. Even when your table is quieter than it used to be, your presence still matters. Even when you are no longer busy in the old ways, your days still have purpose. Maybe your purpose now is smaller than it used to be, but smaller does not mean less meaningful. Maybe your purpose is to tend a few flowers on the porch. Maybe it is to pray for your family. Maybe it is to call another lonely friend. Maybe it is to write down a memory before it disappears. Maybe it is to make a simple pot of soup and share some with a neighbor. Maybe it is to smile at the young cashier who looks tired. Maybe it is to sit quietly in the morning and give thanks for one more day. The world may overlook those things, but heaven does not, and the human heart does not. Small kindnesses still count. Small prayers still matter. Small routines can still hold a life together. After 60, after 70, after all the years of doing big things because you had to, you may discover the quiet beauty of small things done with love. There is dignity in making your bed slowly. There is dignity in taking your medicine on time. There is dignity in walking to the mailbox, even if you move carefully. There is dignity in preparing a simple lunch for yourself. There is dignity in sitting in your favorite chair and resting without apologizing. There is dignity in saying, "Today, I will choose peace." And that peace becomes even more important when you realize that being needed can be unstable. People need you when they need you. Then they may go quiet again. Their need comes and goes. But your peace must not depend only on their attention. That is a hard lesson, but a freeing one. Because if your heart rises and falls every time the phone rings, or does not ring every time someone visits, or does not visit every time someone thanks you, or forgets to thank you, you may spend your later years living at the mercy of other people's habits. You deserve steadier ground than that. You deserve a peace that comes from within. Not because family no longer matters. Family matters deeply. But your soul needs more than waiting. Waiting for the call. Waiting for the visit. Waiting for the apology. Waiting for someone to finally understand how much you gave. Sometimes that understanding may come. Sometimes it may not. Some adult children do grow softer with time. Some grandchildren grow up and begin to ask questions. Some family members eventually realize what they took for granted. Life has a way of opening people's eyes when they have lived long enough. But you cannot place your whole peace in the hope that someone else will one day understand. You can hope. You can pray. You can keep the door of love open. But you can also begin living now. You can begin noticing who does show up. Maybe it is not the person you expected. Maybe it is a neighbor who checks on you after a storm. Maybe it is a friend from church who saves you a seat. Maybe it is a grandchild who texts you a picture once in a while. Maybe it is the woman at the pharmacy who remembers your name. Maybe it is a little dog that follows you from room to room. Maybe it is one good friend who listens without rushing. Love does not always arrive from the direction we expected. Sometimes we spend so much time grieving the people who do not show up that we miss the gentle ones who do. Look around your life. Who makes you feel peaceful, not pressured? Who asks about your heart, not just your help? Who can sit with you without needing anything from you? Those are the people to cherish. Those are the relationships that remind you what love feels like. Not dramatic, not demanding, not one-sided, just present, just kind, just steady. If this speaks to your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Your story may help someone else feel less alone today. One of the quiet victories after 60 is learning to stop chasing the love that only visits when it needs something. That does not mean you stop loving. It means you stop abandoning yourself in order to be chosen. You can keep loving your children without pretending their distance never hurts. You can keep loving your family without becoming the emergency room for every problem. You can keep your heart open without leaving it unprotected. That balance takes time. Some days you will do well. Other days a phone call may stir up old feelings again. Someone may ask for something, and your heart may feel that old tug. You may think, if I say yes, maybe they will stay a little longer. Maybe they will talk a little more. Maybe they will remember me. Be gentle with yourself when that happens. You are not weak. You are simply human. A heart that has loved for decades does not learn new patterns overnight. It takes practice. It takes prayer. It takes quiet courage. Maybe the next time someone calls only because they need something, you can pause before answering. You can breathe. You can ask yourself, do I have the strength for this? Am I helping from love or am I helping from fear? That little pause can change your life because in that pause, you remember that you have a choice. And having a choice is part of getting your dignity back. You may still say yes, but if you say yes, let it come from peace, not panic. Let it come from love, not fear of being forgotten. Let it come from generosity, not the belief that you must earn affection. And sometimes you may say no, a calm number, a kind number, a no that does not attack or explain too much. I'm sorry I can't do that today. I wish I could, but I need to rest. That won't work for me this time. At first your voice may shake, but the more you honor your own limits, the more your spirit learns that you are safe with yourself. That is a beautiful thing. To become in your later years someone who finally protects the person you have always been. After all, think of everything you have carried. You have carried bills, worries, jobs, family needs, heartbreaks, disappointments, health scares, grocery bags, sleeping children, holiday meals, grief, and hope. You have carried conversations that no one else remembers. You have carried memories of people who are no longer here. You have carried silent prayers for children who never knew how often you worried. You have carried your own fears and still got up in the morning. That kind of life deserves tenderness, not just usefulness, tenderness. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, some of that tenderness needs to come from you. How do you speak to yourself when the house is quiet? Do you speak with kindness? Or do you repeat old messages that make you feel guilty for resting guilty, for needing guilty, for wanting love without conditions? Many older people are kinder to everyone else than they are to themselves. They will forgive a child quickly. They will comfort a friend. They will encourage a neighbor. But when it comes to their own loneliness or tiredness, they say, I should be stronger. I should not feel this way. I should be grateful and stop complaining. Gratitude is beautiful, but gratitude does not mean pretending you never hurt. You can be grateful and lonely at the same time. You can be blessed and still need a hug. You can love your family and still wish they called more. You can have faith and still have human feelings. There is room for all of it. And when you allow yourself to tell the truth, gently, healing begins. Maybe the truth is, I miss being included. Maybe the truth is, I am tired of only being called when there is a problem. Maybe the truth is, I want to be loved, not just needed. Saying that truth even quietly to yourself can feel like opening a window in a room that has been closed for too long. Fresh air comes in. And with that fresh air comes the possibility of living differently. Not in a hard way, not in a bitter way, but in a freer way. You begin to notice the morning light again. You sit with your coffee and decide not to wait for the phone before feeling alive. You take your walk because your body deserves care. You make yourself a good breakfast because you are worth feeding well. You put on a favorite song because joy does not require permission. You call a friend not because you are desperate, but because connection is healthy. You look at old photos and smile, even if a tear comes with the smile. You thank God for the people who were part of your story, even the ones who did not love you perfectly. And slowly, very slowly, your life becomes less about being needed and more about being at peace. That is not giving up. That is growing wise. Sometimes we think the later years are only about loss. Loss of speed, loss of strength, loss of roles, loss of a crowded home, loss of certain dreams. And yes, aging does bring losses. It would not be honest to deny that. But aging also brings a kind of clarity that younger years often do not have. You begin to see what matters. You begin to see who matters. You begin to see that peace is more precious than being busy. You begin to see that a quiet morning can be a gift. You begin to see that not every request deserves your yes. You begin to see that love is not proven by exhaustion. You begin to see that you are still here and that is no small thing. What is one lesson life taught you after 60 that you wish you had known earlier? Maybe your answer is patience, maybe forgiveness, maybe boundaries, maybe gratitude, maybe learning that family can be loved deeply, but they cannot be your only source of joy. That lesson can feel painful at first, but it can also open your life. Because when you stop expecting one person or one family member to meet every emotional need, you begin to find life in other places. A community center, a church group, a morning walk, a neighbor's wave, a phone call with an old friend, a hobby you had forgotten, a journal beside your bed, a volunteer opportunity that fits your energy, a quiet prayer before sleep, a sunset that asks nothing from you except to notice it. There are still things that can love you back in their own way. The world is not finished with you. Your story is not empty because certain people forgot to read the next chapter. And maybe that is one of the most comforting truths of all. You are more than the role you played in someone else's life. You are more than mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, helper, worker, caregiver, provider, or the one everyone calls in a crisis. Those roles are beautiful, but underneath them is a soul, a person, you. A person with memories, opinions, humor, fears, hopes, favorite songs, favorite meals, stories no one has heard yet, and wisdom that could fill a room if someone took the time to listen. Do not let anyone's lack of attention convince you that your life is small. Your life is wide. It reaches back through decades. It holds roads traveled, homes lived in, people loved, storms survived, mistakes learned from, and mornings when you got up, even when your heart was heavy. That is not small. That is sacred. If this video brings you comfort, please like and subscribe for more stories after 60. And if you know someone who needs this reminder today, share it with them gently. There may come a day when someone in your family begins to understand. Maybe they will call and say, "I know I haven't been around much." Maybe they will ask about your life in a way they never did before. Maybe they will sit at your table and finally listen. If that day comes, receive it with grace. Let love grow where it can, but do not wait to be whole until that day arrives. You can begin being whole now. You can begin by loving yourself in the places where others were careless. You can begin by making your home feel peaceful for you, not just ready for visitors. You can begin by keeping your favorite cookies in the pantry because you enjoy them. You can begin by sitting on the porch without feeling guilty that you are not doing something more productive. You can begin by writing down your stories even if no one has asked yet. You can begin by saying a prayer for your family and then releasing them for the evening. You can begin by telling yourself, "I am still here. I still matter. My quiet days still have value," because they do. The day you are not needed for anything special is still a meaningful day. The morning no one calls is still a morning you are allowed to enjoy. The evening you spend alone is still an evening where peace can enter. Your worth does not disappear in silence. Your dignity does not depend on demand. Your heart does not become less important because fewer people ask for it. At 72, to learn that being needed is not the same as being loved can hurt, but it can also set you free. It frees you from trying to earn love by overgiving. It frees you from saying yes when your body says no. It frees you from confusing attention with affection. It frees you from believing that your purpose is only to be useful. And once you are free from that even a little, you can begin to recognize love in its truer form. Love that checks in. Love that listens. Love that respects your limits. Love that remembers your humanity. Love that does not treat your kindness like a machine that never runs out. Love that sits beside you not because it needs something, but because your presence is enough. That is the love your heart has always wanted. And even if it has not always come from the people you hoped it would, do not close your heart to the possibility of receiving it. Sometimes it comes quietly. Sometimes it comes late. Sometimes it comes through friendship, faith community, pets, neighbors, or the gentle companionship of your own healed spirit. And sometimes the first real love you feel after years of being needed is the love you finally give yourself. Not selfish love, not proud love, but peaceful love. The kind that says, "You have done enough today." The kind that says, "Rest now." The kind that says, "You do not have to prove anything." The kind that says, "You are allowed to be cared for too." That kind of love can change the way you move through your days. You may still help your family. You may still answer the phone. You may still give when you can. But something inside you becomes steadier. You no longer give to keep your place. You give because your heart chooses to. And when you cannot give, you do not collapse into guilt. You trust that love, real love, can survive your limits. That is quiet strength. That is wisdom. That is one of the great victories of growing older. Not the kind of victory people applaud. No one may see it. No one may give you a medal for it. But one morning you may sit at your kitchen table with your coffee, hear the quiet around you, and realize you are not as afraid of the silence as you used to be. You may look at the phone and understand that whether it rings or not, you are still loved by God, still held by life, still worthy of tenderness, still part of this world. You may look out the window and see the birds moving through the yard. You may notice the light on the floor. You may take a slow breath. And you may feel, perhaps for the first time in a long while, that peace does not always arrive with company. Sometimes peace arrives when you finally stop begging life to prove your worth. You simply receive the truth that was there all along. You matter, not because someone needs you today, not because you can still do all the things you used to do, not because you never get tired, not because you never feel lonely. You matter because you are you. A person who has lived. A person who has loved. A person who has carried more than most people know. A person still capable of wisdom, kindness, laughter, prayer, gratitude, and quiet joy. So if you are 62, 72, 82, or anywhere beyond, please hear this gently. Your life after 60 is not the leftover part. It is not the forgotten part. It is not just the waiting room. It is a chapter of deep meaning. A chapter where you can stop proving and start receiving. A chapter where you can give with wisdom instead of fear. A chapter where you can love others without losing yourself. A chapter where you can enjoy small things without apology. A chapter where quiet victories count. Maybe today's victory is making breakfast. Maybe it is taking a walk. Maybe it is going to the doctor, even though you felt nervous. Maybe it is calling a friend. Maybe it is not answering a request right away. Maybe it is saying no kindly. Maybe it is sitting in silence and not letting loneliness tell you lies. Maybe it is whispering thank you before you fall asleep. These victories may look small, but they are not small. They are the building blocks of peace. And peace, after everything you have been through, is a beautiful thing to build. So tonight, when the house gets quiet, be gentle with yourself. If the phone does not ring, you are still worthy. If no one asks how you are, ask yourself with kindness. If someone only remembers you when they need something, do not let that define the whole meaning of your life. You are not just needed. You are not just useful. You are not just the one who gives. You are a soul with a story. You are a heart that still matters. You are a life still unfolding, and there is still beauty ahead of you. Not always loud beauty, not always easy beauty, but the soft kind. The kind found in morning coffee, old songs, clean sheets, a good memory, a kind neighbor, a prayer whispered in the dark, a simple meal, a warm blanket, a sunset, a laugh that surprises you, and the quiet knowledge that you have made it through another day. Life after 60 is not the end of the story. It is a meaningful chapter filled with wisdom, grace, peace, gratitude, and quiet victories. And perhaps one of the greatest victories is this: learning that you do not have to be needed by everyone in order to be worthy of love. You already are.